incremental.
Hello, listeners. My name is Nate Newman, and this is another episode of In Practice, the show where we talk to people with a high level of expertise in their respective skills and how they think about what they do in and what they've learned from practicing. My guest today is a Renaissance man of sorts. We played in a band together years ago, and we've stayed good friends since then. This was back when I lived in Cincinnati, so this had to be, man, I'm old, 4 years ago. Anyway, he's a great sax player. He's a practitioner of martial arts and a software engineer with GE Digital. The conversation went in a lot of great and unexpected directions, so I hope you enjoy listening to this interview as much as I enjoyed being a part of it. So please, have fun listening to Christopher Warren Groppe. Talk into the microphone.
My name is Christopher Warren Groppe. I'm 26 years old. I like jazz. I like the B movie. I don't know if those two things correlate or not. I do not like Jerry Seinfeld. I was kidding about the B movie. I do like jazz.
I like the B movie for like the first 40 minutes before it went off the rails.
We watched it one time in German class with the German dub and English subtitles. And that's all I know of it.
You know what? This was going to just be a sound check, but I think we should just roll with this. So besides the B movie, can you give the people at home a quick intro?
Like I said, my name is Christopher Warren Groppe. I'm a software engineer at GE Digital. I'm a jazz enthusiast. I play in a band. Our name changes every show. Some of our best band names have been Vin Diesel's Ride or Die Quintet, Andran's Canned Ham Jam Band, the Scooby Don'ts. So, yeah.
I had a small bit in this band before I moved to Austin. I think we were the...
Your New French Friends.
Your New French Friends.
We've had 2 attempts at a serious name. Your New French Friends, which I actually kind of like. But my thought process behind coming up with a band name is you keep coming up with terrible ones that are kind of jokes until a real one comes out. And that just hasn't happened with us. So
it's like, I know it's bad. I'm not even trying. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like kind of fun though. You try to like outdo your last silly name. And the one like serious attempt I've ever had, and we actually played as this, was Heavy Brain, which isn't a great band name, and I didn't come up with it, but it was part of my parents' Wi-Fi password.
You know, I've been keeping the band name list for years now. Mm-hmm. And I never considered that I should use it as my Wi-Fi password. Wi-Fi password or Wi-Fi name list. There's because that is where I run out of creativity all the time.
There's a...
what are we calling this?
You know, the meme relevant XKCD. Mm-hmm. It talks about password strength, and it's like horse, staple. Let's see but like your passwords, like you don't have to have like... Yeah, here it goes. Password strength. It's correct horse battery staple. So 4 random common words make it so that it'll take like at least 550 years to guess. So you don't have to have like a 0 or an exclamation mark or like an ampersand. You just be like cat, studio, fire, pillow.
Hit enter.
And you're Gucci. You just have to have 4 really random words slapped together. Yeah, so maybe the band name list can also sort of...
I think there's a lot of use for that.
I like that.
Yeah. Okay, to keep us just enough on the rails. This is In Practice, which I'm designing to be a podcast all about practicing and how people practice and the interesting things that they do. And the reason I'm interviewing you, one, because we're good friends, but you're sort of a Renaissance man because you're a saxophonist. You code very well. And you've been involved in martial arts and yoga at different times.
Yeah, I still actively do martial arts. I still actively work out. Like I said earlier, I'm a software engineer, or like a data engineer, I guess. And I play saxophone. You say the part of Renaissance man, and I thank you for that. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. But I don't consider anything I do necessarily different from anything else.
I think I know what you mean, but could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, and I will explain that. So this is a software engineering principle, which was taken from the Japanese, maybe. It was originally a Japanese principle. The Agile development process in software engineering kind of stole the word, maybe not the idea, but stole the word for it. It's called Kaizen. I'm probably saying that wrong. For anybody out there who hears this and thinks I'm a fucking idiot. Kaizen, sorry, you're right, God. Yeah. Oh. But the purpose of it is small iterative approaches. And, I don't identify as a software engineer. I don't identify as saxophone player. I don't identify as any of that. What I identify is my ability to improve a little bit every day. And that's sort of my conviction. So I just happen to put it in those chunks. Because there's a lot of things to do in the world. And like I always say, it's not that I don't give a fuck about other things, but I have a limited amount of fuck resources that I can give, and I have to allocate them correctly.
I think we could all relate.
Yeah.
No, that rings true. I've had this conversation in the last couple of weeks that think about some word that you had for your identity. I was a yogi, or I was a football player. Any of these hats you could have put on and said, this is me. And how that changed. How long were you really that?
So football player, like a lot of my identity, I guess, a long time, I was a football player. I wanted to play football in college. I would work out all the time,
Mm-hmm.
And then that stopped. And I got to college and I was like, now what? Who am I outside of working out and playing football in high school? I played music in high school with a band, so I started picking up saxophone, and it was on and off. And, I finally took it seriously a couple of years ago. But the thing that has stayed true throughout all those years has been that small iterative approach. So
I think that more to the point, and this is what I think is so cool about having multiple disciplines, is that you start to realize what's really you isn't the word that you can put on you, but what's you is the principles you try to live up to.
Yeah. So like the way I put it is like, quote unquote, your conviction about it.
Mm.
Like how true you are to it. I'm not going to straight up tell you that like I'm an amazing jazz saxophone player. I'm pretty okay. I'm comfortable with that.
You're a fucking good sax player.
I got a lot to improve on, right? But I'm more comfortable saying that I have a lot to improve on, but I am improving and making those little changes every day.
I'm up to the point of saying I don't suck at guitar.
Right, yeah. Like
even though I teach it for a living.
Right, like people are gonna like in the stands are gonna be like, man, you're really good. And the only thing I can ever think about was like, oh man, like these are the things I need to work on now. You know what I mean? Like when I perform, but I'm always saying it's always a practice, like when you play football, afterwards you watch your game film. All the videos we did have of the show that I was in, I would listen to it, be like, oh man, you sounded good there. And I was like, wow, well, I tried to do this on this lick, but it didn't happen. So how do I improve that later? And
it's hard to really gauge how much people hear that as a mistake.
They don't. It's funny because one of the licks that I did hear from the last show, I screwed up on. I wanted to play something. I didn't play it right. I recovered. It ended up being really cool. So I transcribed myself, and now I'm going to relearn what I did in that moment.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting how that's a loop. How do I recreate my mistake?
And it's funny because when you transcribe a solo, which I think is a very important thing to do, I find myself asking, was that a mistake? Am I learning someone's mistake as like a truth? And like, what's the difference at that point anyway?
Your judgment,
right. When I do learn a solo, it's not so much about learning the notes that person played, but it's about learning that person's attitude within the solo and then taking out the cool licks that are actually ones you really, really like sort of resonate with. So I've been learning The Backbone by the Dexter version. I've taken a couple licks out of it, but it's really about his attitude. Some of my favorite things he does in that solo is just this simple like 3-note phrase. It's really simple and it's really easy to play. It's the way I've been describing it is like almost disrespectful. His attitude is almost like he's like telling somebody off. And not disrespectful in a bad way, like not like, oh, hey man, you're the worst, like you're dumb, like I can't believe you're listening to me play this. I just imagine him being like sassy and powerful with it, being like, nah, like no way, like, and it's just like disrespectful and it makes you want to go, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and we can practice with metronome and work our technique and make our fingers bleed all day. But after all of that is to have the ability and maybe not even the requirement to have to use all of that so you can express an intent like it.
Right. When I practice, I do a day of technique and a day of like soloing.
Oh, you're pretty regimented about it.
Yeah. So I switch off days. So like if I do technique one day, I'll do transcribing and soloing the next day. Because I can only practice so long. I think at a certain point there's diminishing returns. You know, you hear the stories of the dudes practicing for like 13 hours a day. Maybe that's real. Maybe it's not. Maybe heroin helped because, you know, that's the story of jazz. But that's not me. After like 2 hours, 3 hours, I can't anymore. I'm not going to learn anything new. I'm not going to pick up anything. I'm not going to polish anything. I'm not going to get anything out of it. What I used to do is like practice my technique stuff. That would take time. And by the time I got to the soloing and the transcribing part, I'd be burnt out and I just like wouldn't do it. And that was affecting me playing live. So I just started switching off the days. And even if it is like a solo day, I still warm up and do some of the technique stuff, but it's just to get my fingers moving.
Sort of like you have a tank and there's only so much gas in it. It's like your day's bandwidth has to be put towards something.
There's only so much I can care about or do in a day.
Yep.
And
the fuck count.
The fuck allocation, you know, there's only so much I can give in a day and I got to give it right. You know, it's the same with working out. You don't want to work out your biceps every day. You're going to plateau and you're going to look stupid. You're going to be fat and have huge biceps, right?
Right. But
unless you're into that, I mean, whatever.
Working out, that's one thing because people are like, well, I'm just working this and I'm going to see the returns on it because it's going to hypertrophy and it's going to look like you have big biceps or whatever.
Yeah.
With music, I would still be left over with the anxiety of not being great at some other aspect.
Because there's always like a million things to work on.
Exactly. Yeah. But that it takes maturity and experience to know that, you know, you have to set a target for a day and make as much progress as you can in one direction with intent.
So yesterday's practice, for instance, right? I ran through my warm-up and then I wanted to work on this Sonny Rollins lick that I've been working on for weeks that I just haven't really dedicated any time to. And I'm like, you know what? Screw it. The next couple practices are going to be dedicated to just getting this lick right and then being able to use it in a couple songs. And I only got... So when I learn a lick, I learn all 12 keys, right?
It's pretty important in saxophone. I don't know how many guitar players are listening, but it took me a while until that sunk in for me that horn players, piano players, playing in different keys is a challenge.
Yeah.
It's something entirely new to learn. On guitar, you learn something in one place and you can slide it up and move it around.
I think, like, you know, saxophone harder than guitar is guitar harder than saxophone. Well, guitar, you have chords and you have this huge neck and you have way more notes. Saxophone, like, you don't have the graph system. You can't just slide up. I think it's, you know, it's a give or take at that point.
Mm.
But that is one of the challenges for saxophone is that your 12 keys aren't a grid.
I'm a guitar player, so I'd never worry about that.
Right. Yeah, but I don't have to worry about chord inversions. I do when I'm playing arpeggios and stuff.
Right.
But like, it's not the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't have to do different like fingering techniques or, you know, different picking techniques.
Yeah, but that's what I'm getting at is people ask me sometimes because I play a couple of things and they're like, is bass harder than guitar? And I mean, the answer is always it depends. What are you doing?
Yeah, what are you trying to do with it?
Yeah.
If you know, if you're cool with just going to town on the root note, then probably not. But slapping techniques and playing double bass and like different plucking techniques, different ways you move up and down the fret. Yeah, there's the, you know, their own challenges that come in with that. Yeah, you got to split up your time ultimately. And sometimes you keep, and this is a personal lesson I've learned over the years. Sometimes you got to focus on the day by day with keeping the bigger picture in mind. You're going to worry about, you know, just taking a step at a time. And eventually, you know, you're going to get to that overarching picture in your life, you know, whatever it may be, whether it be your ability to play saxophone or you're getting your college degree, whatever it is, you know, like finding the right job, you know, working on the small steps for that. Eventually, you're going to just take care of the daily stuff. In my opinion, the bigger picture is going to happen eventually, and it's just going to be an epiphany almost.
Totally agree. But I remember one thing that you said. You did that masterclass for Nick about the different programs, apps, technology that you were using to help your practice. And one thing you said at the end about practicing, putting some time in every day, is it makes you a better person.
It's just...
That kind of rings true to me. I think that's a bigger lesson for life is that you keep putting this time in. You're always putting in your day's work.
Right. You get it's like a path or a journey. I hate to use Nietzsche here, but...
Oh my God, you're using Nietzsche, dude.
Well, one thing, because it's really, really douchey to use Nietzsche.
I'm pointing that out right now. Yeah.
First of all, it's really douchey to do that, and there's a lot of controversy around the statement because of World War II.
But please go ahead.
And the Germans, but
what about the Germans?
Nate, what do you?
Go on.
He kind of defined people in two classes, which I don't take this the wrong way. I want to preface with this, but it was pretty much with like people with a goal and people without a goal.
Mm.
And the people with a goal he considered better people, and then that's the moving forward. And I don't necessarily consider that better or anything, but like the fact is, like, what drives me crazy the most is just stagnation. Just like the worst weeks I have is when I have to bust my ass at work and come home and not do anything. I don't even have like the energy to practice. I just go to bed and wake up and do it again. That has to happen from time to time, obviously, but it doesn't have to be big improvements, right? I'm not looking at the 6 months down the road. I'm not looking at the year down the road. I'm not looking at 5 years down the road, because I know that, what's the 5-year plan? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like, I don't know. Because if you asked me that 5 years ago, 21, I didn't think I was going to graduate school. I wasn't confident in myself. I was within a battle of depression. The story.
Yeah, planning that far out, a lot of people put it on a pedestal, but saying that you have a plan for the next 5 years is also saying that you are not going to listen or react to any epiphany that you have in the next 5 years.
Right. And I know that the world is a big place with tons of people, tons of different ideas. And you really never know what's going to happen. Period. Ever. Mm-hmm. So, you can have your 5-year plan, sure, which I think is ridiculous regardless. That's way too far to plan out. Or you can have
But we're young. If you have kids and
it's different
support, you'd want to be able to have stability for that long.
Right. And I don't have kids. I'm young. I'm a young professional. The only person I have to worry about, is myself. I don't have anybody depending on me. But I know that, even a year ago, I had just started an internship, and I was just worried about, still graduating school and proving myself in this internship. I didn't know a year later I would be working full time for that company. I didn't know what life was going to give me. I just knew that I got to learn everything I can here, because at worst I have GE on my resume as an internship. At best I get a job there. That's still pretty good. I need to learn as much as I can. There are a lot of obviously smarter, but there are a lot of people who are more...
Did Chris grab you?
I'm just saying there were a lot of people who were a lot more experienced than I was there. Just way more experienced. And I definitely, even the interns. And I had to play catch up. And I did whatever was necessary to play catch up and prove myself in that.
You know Scott Adams?
I do not.
The guy who makes Dilbert.
I know Dilbert, yeah.
He wrote some book, I forget the title, but one thing that stuck with me that he talked about in there is people who have goals and people who have systems. And people who have goals are always reaching for it, and if they're not there, then they're always failing. They've always failed to get to their goal. But if they have systems, they're always succeeding.
Right.
They're always showing up and working the requirements of their system. Their system is I do this every day, and I will incrementally improve. Right. That's not a goal, that's a system.
Another software engineering process, side note, shout out to Sam Cho, my software engineering teacher. Dude put that class through hell, and a week doesn't go by where I don't say, oh man, Sam, you were right. You were right about that. Every fucking week that dude fucking calls it. But he always stressed the process of what's happening. And the process might change, right? It's not about, if you have 10 smart individuals, computer scientists, software engineers, whatever, data scientists, it doesn't matter what software they're going to build. It matters that they're going to be there and working, and that you have them there, and they have a good process, because the software will come from that. It will happen. Don't worry about the goal. Don't worry about the software. Worry about the process that you're doing it in.
Nick and I were just talking about the Muse, and we were talking about, why do you practice every day? The way that we put it was to be a worthy conduit, to put the work into the process so that when the inspiration comes, or when this moment comes that this has to happen, it can happen.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
I've never heard about it in an organization, though. I've never thought about it that way.
I didn't either. I didn't like this study of software engineering. When you think of software engineering, you think of a bunch of tech nerds coming up with cool technology and math, right? That's what I thought. But software engineering itself is more of this weird mix of business and working together with other people and how you work and like what you work with. And it's
a pretty meta way of looking at things.
It's really meta. And like I said, the technology and the algorithms and the software and the data comes from that. You got to know how to do the algorithms. You got to know how to do the coding first, or that stuff wouldn't make sense. But that stuff is so important. That's why the tech industry is so different when it comes to like how people work. You know, the first thing people say, oh, they have like free food and like gyms and stuff. But I think what's really fascinating is about actually how they work.
Not how they don't work.
Yeah, not how they don't work. Like, yeah, so like I work for GE Digital. We're a digital company. And we have this, like, we're the Cincinnati office, there's an Atlanta office, and they have like free snacks and stuff, right? That's because they're like their own isolated office where we're in like a global operations center. So there's like finance and other business. I don't know. You know, and people always kind of complain about that we don't have the same like food and like opportunities they do. And that's not true. I have the freedom to go on a walk in the middle of the afternoon if I need to and just like clear my head. And I absolutely love that. But I love the combination of it being kind of a formal business office in what you would expect and a little bit of that startup tech mentality. And I don't think I would like the extreme of either. You know, and it's still sort of this formal business aspect, but I have the freedom to go on a walk and hang out.
Is that something you usually do?
Yeah, I go on a walk every day.
Oh, awesome.
You can't be coding for 8 hours straight. You got to get up and...
It's hard to do anything for 8 hours straight.
Right. You got to go clear your head and, you know, maybe your morning's boggled down with meetings and then you have to code for a couple hours. No, I need to go outside, go to a park and breathe a little bit and de-stress. So it's nice that we have that opportunity.
I wonder if that's a truth for everybody or if that's
I think it's
sort of a tolerance that each person has to their own degree. Being able to sit and do something single-mindedly and for how long.
Some days are like that. There's no doubt. Some days are that I'll code in like 2 o'clock and there's a couple guys I go on a walk with every day or go get coffee and, you know, shoot the shit, talk about work, talk about politics, talk about, you know, different aspects of the software engineering industry. But those breaks and clearing my head and getting the coffee and going on a walk help me come back and continue busting my ass.
Everybody sort of needs that.
Yeah.
I wonder, would you have more fucks to give about saxophone if you took a walk and had that kind of mental break?
For sure. I would like to do that in my practices, right? I would like to maybe in the mornings, like wake up early and just get through scales and then go to work and come back and then do the soloing, right? But I don't have that kind of time. So that's why I split it between 2 different days. That was kind of when 2 people work together. That was the compromise that I had to make.
Yeah, I was going to ask about your time management because...
It's not perfect, but I work on it every day and I get a little bit better. Yeah. So it's generally work, go to work, do the work thing, bust my ass getting home, practice for a couple hours, work out every day. Do my side project if I have time.
Oh, tell everyone at home about your side project because Chris was explaining this earlier and it's just amazing.
So, nerd alert, spoiler warning.
Well, this whole episode will be.
I know, yeah. I think graphing algorithms and graph theory is just neat. It's so cool. When we were learning about it in school.
What exactly is graph theory?
So think of a network, like a computer network, or think of a you know the web and think of like how your friends are connected on Facebook, right? It's a node, whatever entity that node may be. If it's Facebook, it would be you, and the edges or vertices, I don't know. The connection dot is how you're connected to that person, and then that person is also a node. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a line connected from you to somebody that you're connected to, and then they might be connected to somebody that you're not also connected to.
Right.
So that's your intermediary.
Right, but it's just like some form of some object. When you draw it out in computer science class, it's like a circle that holds some sort of data for whatever reason, and then like an arrow pointing to another thing that is similar that holds data for whatever reason, and how they're connected. Once again, networking. It's like, oh, how is this server connected to that server? How is this website connected to that website? You know, there's a million different things you can use it for. How is this processor connected to that processor? So it's all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And it's just very interesting on what you can do with it. It's like a relationship map.
Yeah, I'm familiar with those.
Yeah, like a relationship map.
Facebook, yeah.
Facebook is
exactly that, yeah.
But the math that you can do it is really neat. That you can do behind it is really neat. And the most well-known example of graph theory, though you don't know it as graph theory, is PageRank, which is Google's algorithm to determine which website you get, first when you search for something. And it basically says that depending on the incoming and outgoing links and how you're connected to other important websites. That's how you're going to get ranked.
Yeah, and this is the stuff of search engine optimization.
Yeah, and Google, I think it's called Google Pandas, is their like list of the weights of how important these connections are. So let's say you have a really stupid bougie website, but for whatever reason you have a ton of links ingoing and outgoing of it. It's going to be weighted less in the algorithm as opposed to like a website like Facebook or like CNN. For whatever reason, Google doesn't tell what it is, but like that website will be more important. Maybe it's because of the sponsors they have. Maybe it's because of the clicks they get. Maybe it's, it's all these different things, things combined. And they don't tell us what it is.
So you kind of figure it out yourself.
You can guess, but it's really hard to guess. Bing search engine has their set of variables with that too. And that's why Bing is a different website or a different search engine. So
it's just working. Okay, but that's all the variables with PageRank.
So what I want to do with it is, a movie ranking system called CageRank, pun intended, about how...
Well done.
Thank you. About how well you can rank a movie based off of how close it is and how many outgoing and incoming links it has to a Nicolas Cage movie.
But, I mean, I can see the use for it. Absolutely.
No, the thought, and this was a shout out to Jacob Schreiber. He kind of came up with a more meta idea of it. It's like, well, Nicolas Cage is in like massive amounts of debt, and he's in tons of movies just to get money to pay this debt. So he doesn't really care if the movie is good or bad, right? He has no artistic meaning behind these movies. He just needs to get paid. Most of them, right? Sometimes, because
occasionally there's a good Nick Cage movie.
The new Spider-Man movie, Into the Spider-Verse, he's in that, and apparently that's getting really rave reviews.
Huh.
But I don't know or not if Nicolas Cage joined that movie because he thought it'd be a cool idea to be part of the Spider-Man, Spider-Verse movie. He might just need to get paid, and it's all voice work, so it's not like super. You don't have a super long time commitment as opposed to acting. The theory behind it is like, if you assume, which you have to do a lot in math, assume that this is true. Assume Nick Cage is just taking these movies to get paid, that these movies might not be the greatest thing.
Sure.
And that these actors that are in the movies with him, if it's not a great movie, they're probably doing the same thing. So the closer you are to these movies and these actors that are in these movies and Nick Cage, the more you can sort of like gauge on how artistic that movie is.
Gauged by the Cage rank.
Gauged by the Cage rank. Yeah. The Nick Cage gauge.
Nick Cage gauge.
Right.
Page.
Yeah, the Nick Cage
is
gauge
the website that you should put together.
So I don't expect to learn anything super interesting out of it. It's a fun exercise. I had to actually go and learn how to operate and do PageRank, and then I had to get the data. We might find fun things in it. I don't know.
Maybe there's some meaningful data.
Yeah, maybe there is meaningful data. Maybe there isn't. Either way, it's going to be a fun website to have. And I want to show people what I'm interested in and, the fun things I can come up with and, make a website for it and kind of get my name out there.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it.
It's going to take time.
Yeah.
So when it's out, though, I'll update Nate and the listeners can finally see about CageRank. I'm
excited. What's that subreddit? It's One True God.
Is that
I think that's all Nick Cage.
Well, my plan is to do you ever watch Community?
I've seen a lot of episodes.
There's like one episode in the later seasons, and the later seasons are considered not as good as the first couple seasons. But there's an episode where Danny Putty's character, Abed, is in like a Nick Cage class and like tries to decide whether Nick Cage is like a good actor or not. And it basically like breaks down his character and he has like an existential crisis. So my plan is to like send it to him like, hey, maybe Abed could have used this when he was trying to do that report, and maybe he'll retweet it and maybe it'll go viral. I don't know.
You know how to play the game.
Yeah, so that might be it.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So it sounds like your soul is into coding and this sort of stuff too.
Coding to me is no different than saxophone is. The medium is different, but the idea behind them to me aren't the same. I have this world, we'll say, this close, this system I can play and do whatever I want in. And the practice behind it is the same. When you think of computer science, when you think of programming, none of it is real. It's all, when I think of code, I draw pictures first because you kind of have to imagine those pictures because like in a computer system, that graph, that friendship map doesn't actually exist. All that data is stored in memory, which is just a consecutive list of data. And you sort of have to abstract it up another level to sort of get to the idea of that graph. So it is inherently, it's not really, it's inherently abstracted, and you have to think of it that way. And music is also the same. Music theory, it's not music law, it's music theory, because it's just a bunch of ideas that kind of work together, and it's very abstracted. You could look at it scientifically. Well, this tone is this many hertz or whatever. I don't know the science behind it. But why do these tones work together? It's inherently abstracted. And so I think it's sort of the same idea.
I think I heard on Joe Rogan podcast actually was the way you do one thing is the way you do anything.
Yeah, it's all the same.
I hear it and I know what it means, but I think you live it, which that's hard to do.
It goes back to conviction. Like I said, in my early 20s, I battled with me. I wasn't necessarily fond of myself. And it's weird because you have to live with yourself. You're you. And I always saw myself as who I am now. I knew I could be this. I just didn't do it. And finally, I implemented the system. And then, lo and behold, a few years later, just working on the daily stuff, I am where I am. So it's the conviction about it. I'm not the world's greatest programmer. I'm not the world's greatest mathematician. I'm not the world's greatest, saxophone player. But I'm always going to improve. I'm always going to get better. It is my goal to do that. And I never discount my ability to learn. I will do it.
Yeah, it's pretty valuable stuff.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you don't give enough of a shit about to apply that to?
I don't think there's things that I just blatantly don't care about. But once again, there are a few things that I consider more important where I put that idea into. Like, I could be better about finances, right? But I have money in the bank. I've invested a little bit. I haven't optimized it, but it's enough. You know what I mean?
You got your priorities, and it's not the highest one.
It's not the highest one. The open benefit enrollment was a couple months ago for GE, and I put more money in the bank, and I put more money towards my 401k.
So something.
So it's something. It's not a whole lot, but I've only been working for a couple months professionally, so I'm not super worried about it.
Yeah, so for a guy who says he only has so many fucks to give, you give lots of fucks left and right.
Right, but I don't necessarily give a fuck about how cool I am on social media. I don't always give a fuck,
Yeah, but that's so arbitrary once you start to think about it.
Right, but
that's not something you can really work on.
It's still being human. I use social media as an example because it's the big example. Mm-hmm. It's the most relatable example, but it's stuff like that. Here's another example, like the new Star Wars movie, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't like it. I thought it was dumb.
Not a fan either.
Yeah.
That's our opinion. Some people love it. That's okay.
Right. Well, it's not, I have an issue with other people who don't like it. They've attached their identity to Star Wars, and they attacked some of the people who were in the movie for no reason. And then they get real sexist and racial about it. And Disney's trying to social justice warrior my Star Wars. No, dude, it was just a poorly written movie, in my opinion.
Well, it was not the best Star Wars movie.
No,
but I don't know. I think the actress who was the commander of the Rebel fleet,
Leah Durham's character,
Leah Durham, wasn't the most convincing in her role. I think there were women who really could have pulled it off, but it seemed like it was forced by putting her there.
I don't know if that role was even necessary in the movie.
I think that's where the weird sexist thing goes, is because that is kind of blatantly didn't need to be there, and Disney kind of did it to get points for having another female lead role.
There should. Here's the thing about Star Wars. It's this massive galaxy full with all these different aliens and different creatures and humans, right? Leah Durham's character makes sense in the movie that they would have this a female commander, right? Mm-hmm. I just don't think that part was written well. I know the lesson there was that Poe was cocky and needed to learn leadership, but I just don't think they did it right. And then she sacrifices herself in the end. And I know a lot of people that broke Star Wars because why can't you just hyperspace bomb everybody? I honestly thought that moment was a really, really beautiful moment in the movie. It is I think that movie was directed really well. I think it looks really well. I think it's shot well. It has very interesting angles. And I think that shot specifically and that moment was actually really beautiful and really cool. But I didn't care about a character. If that was, Princess Leia or General Leia, that would have held so much more weight. But this character who I mean,
it's a valiant sacrifice.
It's a valiant sacrifice to someone, giving her life up for the cause, But she didn't go through an emotional arc. I didn't connect with her, and not because I'm obviously a white male, white Christian male. I didn't identify her because of who she was, but because she had no development as a character, and I thought she was evil halfway for the most of it.
Well, that's okay. That's the writers doing a decent job because they wanted you to think that.
Oh, right.
You weren't supposed to be on her side until very, very close to the end.
Right, but when it came time for me to like realize that she like was a good character and that she was about to make this noble sacrifice, I was kind of like, this would have been cooler if it was somebody I cared about. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's a hot topic. I hope I don't offend anybody out there. I don't mean to, but like, once again, I don't think the issue with the movie was the social justice warrior pandering. I don't think that exists for the most part. I think if it did exist in that movie, it was negligible and you didn't even really notice it. At least I didn't. I just didn't think she was a well-written character.
Good point.
Yeah. The whole like anti-war message was like pretty much like right in your face. And everyone's like, oh, I don't want my Star Wars to be an anti-war message. No, fuck that. Star Wars should be an anti-war message. Or it should be whatever message the director wants to put in it. It's a movie. It's a piece of art. You put it in there. But I thought his message was ham-handed and shoved in your face. That's why I didn't
I think that's the problem that most of the fans have with Disney is that they write it for the mass market appeal.
Well, it's Disney. What do you expect?
Well, yeah.
But that's my point is I have all of these grievances with the movie and why I don't think it's a good movie. But I'm not going to go on Twitter and berate people for it or like, oh, Disney killed my childhood. No, Disney didn't kill my childhood. The first 3 Star Wars movies, George Lucas, or the episodes 1, 2, and 3, George Lucas didn't kill my childhood. Hell, those movies have had wonderful returns because of the memes out of them. They're almost fun to watch. There isn't a week that doesn't go by that I don't quote Revenge of the Sith. Because it's goofy. They're not great movies, but they were fun. So these people who get
I was going to bring up, this is a long tangent.
A very long tangent, and to wrap it up, people who put their identity into these sort of things lose themselves. I didn't like the movie. A lot of people did. Cool. I think in a lot of respects, the message Rian Johnson was trying to give about like letting go of the past and it doesn't matter about lineage and these big mysteries that exist, who's Snoke, who were Rey's parents, they don't really matter. It's about the characters and it's about these people and now. But then I don't think the characters were that good. It has nothing to do with any of that other stuff.
Well, I feel like people have opinions and they're not hoping that they're right.
Oh, like it would be way better that if my opinion was right than something else.
But I think we're more concerned inherently with being persuasive than being true. Probably as just a human being, it's more useful to be persuasive than to be scientifically, factually true about something.
Yeah, no, I get that. You want to be correct. But like I said, like it goes back to I consider myself a very okay saxophone player. I'm comfortable in that truth. I don't have anything to prove to anybody about how well I can play. I have things to prove to me, but that'll come in time. I don't have anything to prove, and I think a lot of people have things to prove, and they don't necessarily need to.
Do you feel like you've been whittling away what you think you were trying to prove to other people, and now you're down to just respecting yourself and trying to...
It probably started off as that. There's no doubt. At first, I was sad with myself because I wanted to prove other things to other people, but it ended up being like, I need to just do this for me because it brings me joy and it brings me happiness. And that other people's opinions or what people think about you or what you think people think about you, that's just noise. That's just noise that gets in the way of what you really want to do. And if you tune out that noise, or if you recognize that noise and you just accept it for what it is, tune out that noise and do your thing and get a little bit better every day, and that shit will come. I can remember the moment I learned how to program. I didn't know how to program for a long time. And then I can remember one day it all just sort of coming together just because I worked a little bit every day. And now, it takes time to learn new technologies and new concepts, but I know I can do it and I know the process in which to do it.
That's great. Do you think there's room in your life that down the road there's going to be some other pillar of your interests? Right now it's music, coding, martial arts.
Maybe. I can't tell you yes or no.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I like what I'm getting older. I'm almost 30, I guess. You have access to all these technologies. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. There's a lot of stuff I'd like to learn. I think, I would like to know more about how amps and recording software works. I don't have time. I'm going to have to trust somebody else with that. And I'm okay with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Feel like you're solidifying?
No. Yeah. Maybe. A little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be dumb about it either. If there's something that I do have to pick up, I will.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm getting from it is that you're confident enough in yourself, and your conviction has proven to you in the past that you can learn something, and it has nothing to do with you. It just has to do with the conviction that you put into it.
Right. And like, it might take me longer than somebody else. That's cool. I'll put the time into it. I'm a lot better when I don't have a lot of idle time.
Me too.
I'm a lot better as a person when I don't have idle time. And I binge watch season 8 of Voltron. I don't normally do that. I do it every once in a while. And sometimes you need that.
Yeah.
But like, if I were to put like a dating profile up, like, what do you do? Oh, just like watching Netflix. That would drive me nuts. I need to actually be doing something.
Yeah. People do have a point, and it's been said to me before, is, hey man, we're human beings, not human doings. It's like, well, doing is a state of being. Not doing anything. If you're lying down, not doing anything, well, you are lying down. And how do you feel about that?
I personally feel like shit if I'm not doing anything.
If I'm not, yeah. Like literally doing anything is better than doing
nothing. Right. And this isn't like a jock on anyone who chooses to do that. I just choose not to do that. I have chosen to do this. I have the ability to choose to do that. I have been privileged enough where I can do that. And I respect that. So I choose to improve and give back where I can. One day I want to be a teacher and give back all of the lessons I've learned.
What do you think you'll teach?
Probably like high school math and then music lessons.
I could see you as a high school math teacher.
Yeah,
it's very easy for me to imagine, actually.
Yeah. I've been tutoring people in calculus recently. I've been helping out with my roommates for one of his computer science classes. And he said I was a very good teacher, and the teacher he goes, I don't understand it. This guy's been doing teaching professionally for years. I don't know why it's so much easier for you to teach me this stuff. And I thought about that, and I think it's because I still remember the pain and the anxiety of trying to learn this stuff. And I remember how and when I learned it. Those things combined makes me able to teach that lesson.
How do you think it makes your lesson different?
Because I know, because the first thing I asked him was like, what's going on here? And he explained it to me. It was like it was an intro to Java class, right? Mm-hmm. It was like, that's what they teach you in these intro to computer science classes are, they teach you a language, whether it be Java or Python or C++, whatever it may be. And they teach you how the language works. That's important. You need to learn how programming languages work. But what's more important about that is how to think through the problem. And they don't teach that. And everybody learns it a little differently, right?
Well, that's one thing that I think a lot of classes fail people in this way, is they teach the process, but they don't stress enough that you need to do reps of it.
I'm gonna append that a little bit. I'm gonna change that a little bit.
Sure.
I think they teach yes, I agree with you. They don't stress doing reps, right?
Yeah, because that's how you learn to think.
That's how you learn to think, but I don't think they necessarily teach a process either. Mm. So like, he was just learning how to do Java. He wasn't learning how to think through a problem. And then they have a homework due every 2 weeks, so they're not practicing every day.
I think that's a failure to them.
Right, I do, and like I said, I would have, instead of having one big homework assignment due every 2 weeks, I would have two smaller chunks of homework assignments due every 2 days, or twice a week or whatever. And then you teach the language in these interest classes because you have to, but you should teach how to go through the thought process. And his teacher would just read slides and say like, oh, this is a for loop. The best teachers I had would have those slides up, and they would give you those slides later, and they would draw out the thought process. And my notes in the class weren't the notes from the slides, but they were his random scribbles on the board that he drew. And I would always write the slide number that we were on with the drawing that he had. So it was like, oh, here's the concept, or here's the part of the language, here's the process for it. And if I had those two combined, I could always figure it out later again. Mm. Instead, they just like, here are the notes. You should be fine with these notes. And then they don't teach people how to think. They don't give them that hand-drawn approach. I have to quote unquote touch the problem before I can actually implement it. And that's by drawing it out. It has to go through my hands.
Right. Well, that's the problems in the back of the chapter.
Do your homework. It helps.
Do your fucking homework.
Do your homework, and then
I actually I was an awful student in high school.
Yeah.
And then in college, I came around in my program. I had to do the whole series of calculus classes, and they always assign a bunch of problems from the back of the chapter, but they were optional.
Mm-hmm.
But I found out if I always did them, I was always prepared. Then I had supply chain management classes that didn't always have those problems, and I was kind of pissed about it because I feel like they just showed me the surface level and didn't really give me much to integrate it, to make it a fully understood thing.
Right. A couple of people I've tutored in calculus, the first thing I ask them is like, all right, give me a problem that you're having problems with. I always ask them, what's your first step here? What do you do? What's your approach? And they go, I don't have an approach. And I always say the first thing is write down the problem. You've touched it, you've experienced it, it's gone through your hand. And then they have no approach on how to solve it, and they also don't have an approach if they get stuck. They don't know how to solve the answer if they get stuck. So I'm not necessarily teaching these kids calculus as much as I'm like, all right, write down the problem, see what it's asking. Oh, you get stuck here? Go to Wolfram Alpha. It'll walk you through it. Buy the account. It's $100 a year. Worth it, engineering students. Buy the pro. That's how I got through it. There's also Slater, that people that have solved the problem before, in the back of the book, they'll solve it and you can see it. And don't just copy it. Work through it. And
if you're stuck, go in there.
If you're stuck, go in there, get unstuck, see if you can solve the rest of it, get stuck again, see if you can get unstuck, use that resource, and then you're going to see a problem like that on the test. Learn how to do the problem. And then eventually, I remember when I was doing Taylor series and stuff, I would look at a problem and be like, all right, I know exactly how to solve this. I know exactly where this is going. Just because I've done it so many times. And segue, I think that leads to creativity. So here, Sam Cho, he's right again.
Go for it.
He said that creativity can be taught and learned. And
something that probably would jive with what Sam said is I took a course on songwriting. This always stuck with me also because it's very catchy, but creativity is productivity.
Yeah, do it. And you're going to get creative.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to butcher this. I have a lot of gaps in my knowledge, but there was a professor who recently proved that there are an infinite amount of prime numbers. At minimum, they're going to be this distance apart, right? And I think what he said is like, all math is a bunch of paper in a trash can and just doing it. That's your research. It's just doing it a bunch and have a bunch of paper and throw it away.
Yeah.
And if it's wrong, toss it in the trash can. If it's right, put it in the cool folder.
Yeah, I think, man, if I can bend this around into something in general about what we've been talking, because we've been all over the place.
We have.
But basically, I think get your gears turning. Just engage with an idea.
Do things.
Well, not even do things, but think about the things. A lot of the time, my students come to me as, I got stuck on this. I don't know how to make this chord. I was like, did you Google it? No.
Did you Google it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that's the least you can do to begin solving a problem is to look into how to solve the problem.
Am I the first person that has had this problem? Let me tell you, no, you're not. Am I the first person to ask about this problem? No, you're not.
It's actually a little bit scary how unoriginal our lives are.
It really is.
In a snapshot.
And I think creativity is compiling. What's the jazz thing for it is like you can't create new without reference to the old.
Mm-hmm.
You can learn all your scales and chords, but you're not going to come up with fire licks. You got to learn other people's fire licks first, and then you can do your fire.
And then mess them up.
And then mess them up.
And then decide it sounds kind of cool and relearn it.
Okay, so yeah, point proven. The lick I was doing was a Sonny Rollins lick. It was just this like 2-bar lick he did in Saxophone Colossus, right? And he did this weird thing with fourths. And I really liked what he was doing with it. So I do it all the time because I think it sounds neat. And it was my first intro to kind of going out, right? And I just started compiling that and taking other people's ideas that I liked and like blending it in there. There's an Eric Alexander lick I learned, and it's with fourths again. But what I did is I wanted to practice with my enclosures in a little bit better. So the first note.
What are enclosures?
Enclosure is like you pick a note and then you put surrounding tones to it, like above and below. So like with this lick, I hit the fifth, and I go down a fourth, right?
Mm-hmm.
But before I hit that fifth, I hit a half step above and a half step below. Da-do-da.
Oh.
You can do it with thirds. You can do it with like a fifth above or below. You can do like fifth, third, like fifth above and below, third below and above, half step up, half step down, and then hit the note, and then do your lick, or do it with every chord tone on that chord. You know.
Everyone at home, basically one simple thing, and then start complicating it, and then you're down a wormhole.
Okay, so here's when I practice, I like to be efficient. So that enclosure practice started off because there was a 2-5-1 turnaround that I would do.
Okay.
And it would start on the 6, it would go down thirds, and it would go back up. And you land on the 5th of the major chord for the 2-5-1.
Okay.
You resolve to the 5th, right? But I was like, I also want to practice enclosures. But
I'm sorry. Not all of our listeners are going to be musicians. 2-5-1 is talking about a harmonized scale. So the second harmonized degree of that scale, the 5th harmonized degree of the scale, and then the first harmonized note of the scale. So degree being the first note, second note, third note. First degree, second degree, third degree. It's a very popular chord progression. You see it all over jazz. It's a tenet of jazz. Sorry, I had to...
Yeah, no, so like,
yeah.
To make it maybe even a little less musical than that, you have your major scale.
Mm-hmm.
So C major, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. The 2 on that is the second degree, which is D. The 5th of that would be starting on the G, and then you go up the arpeggio of that, or you add the 4th, so that's G7.
Yeah, so this is the disappointment for a lot of people when it comes to music, is I thought this was supposed to be creative. Why are we doing math? And it is creative.
Oh, math is creative.
Math
that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, but it absolutely is creative. But you know how you get to the point of being creative? By being productive.
And learning the process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Math and computer science, everyone thinks of us as these like coding, robot logic machines. No, and computer science is inherently creative. How do I create something from nothing? Literally.
Well, what's easily accessible is the aesthetic view of what is my base reaction to this? If it's a gorgeous painting or a beautiful sound, and then the logical point of view is the how is it happening? And those two are linked in the mind of the creator most of the time. But a lot of people, they only see one side of the process.
Mm-hmm. They only see the end result.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I don't think it's about the end result. I truly think that true art is about the process of the person. My goal was to get a job and to graduate college finally. It only took 7 years.
Yeah, I was a super senior too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I took a couple of years off and learned how to cook. Okay, yeah, I wish I had more time to be a better cook still.
It sounds like you're a pretty damn good cook too. Like you were starting to become creative with that.
Yeah, no, it's because I did it every day. You have to get good. You don't have a choice, you know what I mean? And the pressures of a kitchen. But, I stopped cooking at a certain point, and my hunger for knowledge and my hunger for improvement, it always gives me kind of sad that I don't have that. When it comes down to it, what do I do have? I can make pretty good meals, and I can follow a recipe now, and I know the basic cooking techniques and stuff. For a single dude, that's pretty dope. I'm pretty okay with that.
Ladies, putting it out there, this guy knows how to cook.
Kind of. But yeah, I mean, it's that, yeah. So if there is a thing I wish I had a better knowledge of, it's cooking. There we go.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the point. I like to be efficient when I practice. So I was doing a turnaround in 2-5-1, and I also wanted to practice enclosures. So I was like, why don't I just put an enclosure on this lick? And if I do it in all 12 keys, there's only 12 notes. So I'm going to hit all the enclosures that I want to hit in the practice. Boom.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's cool. Do you think you find that kind of efficiency in coding?
No.
No?
I do not.
Really?
No. Man, you go back and you look at code you made 2 weeks ago and you go, what was I thinking?
I look at everything that I did before this very second. I'm like, what was I thinking?
It's easier with music because you're like, I wasn't as good then. But with like computer science, you're just like, I should have known that. But with music, it's kind of one and done. The jazz thing was like, oh, we think albums are dumb because you're supposed to be in the moment, right? But you look at your code and you're like, I clearly just wasn't thinking there. Oh God. So what I have to do with getting better at coding is doing it. I don't have a very efficient method about how to get better. So what I'll do is I'll take a Saturday and take 8 hours like a normal work day and just try new concepts and just try to improve. and I'll try to pick up something from that. You don't always have time. You don't always have time to do that at work because you got to produce, right?
Right.
So I'm not efficient with learning in that. No. I wish I had a better.
But you're putting the time in.
I'm putting the time in. And maybe one day I will find the efficient way to do it. But as of right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Practice. If I have one message to give anybody here, is like kind of a two-part thing. Like, don't take yourself too seriously. Like, you have nothing to prove to anybody. If you think you do, just don't. Like, I have never anything to prove to my parents. Like I said, I'm privileged enough that that's the thing I do have to worry about. You know, I know there's a lot of other factors involved. I do have time. I do have the privilege for that. But you don't have anything to prove to anybody. And then be comfortable with the practice. Have the practice be more fun than the show. Have doing your calculus homework become a good time. And then when you get to the test, it's just showing off your skills. It's nothing to stress about.
Yeah, I think the way I would put it is just be compassionate to yourself. Messing up, there's nothing wrong with it. If you're not performing, that's how you learn to do anything.
Well, right. I made a mistake in a lick I wanted to do, and it ended up working out. And I had to go back and retranscribe it so I could learn it.
Yeah. Doesn't say anything bad about your personality that you messed up.
Right. Mistakes.
They're human.
You know, mistakes will happen, period. You cannot not make mistakes.
Yeah. But especially when you're new.
Yeah. But it's what you do with those mistakes. And it's how you grow from them. Joe Pass would have a practice routine where he'd play a song, purposely make a mistake, and see if he can't get back on the key. So when it did happen, he knew exactly what to do. Practice for making mistakes.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's like with football, you always watch game film, record your practices, keep your notes, see where you made the mistakes, do it again and improve on it and see where you learned it or see where you messed up. And then you're going to be better for it and stronger.
Man, on that note, I feel like
is this the time?
Let's see. How are we doing?
Well, we do have to. If you want to continue this, I'm down. But we do have to get to the graduation party.
Oh, yes. Chris and I are headed to a graduation party.
Gloria Garcia,
congratulations!
Congratulations for graduating. We are super proud of you. You're a rock star.
Right on.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
So beautiful conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You too.
Do this again.
We should.
Yeah.
I would. Yeah. Let's do it.
Awesome. Oh, if people wanted to get in touch with you or see any of the cool things that you do, how should they do that?
I'm terrible at this kind of stuff. Okay, another thing I want to improve on is availability. I wish I was better at self-promotion and maybe being a little cleaner. You know, not that I don't shower, but a little more professionally presented.
I could use it too.
Yeah, yeah. If you do decide to go down this path, be comfortable in the fact that it's going to be a lot of meditation time, a lot of personal time, and I wish I sometimes had a better balance with a social life. I do have a social life. I'm in a band.
We're friends.
We're friends.
Be social.
Yeah, it does take a lot of emotional energy. So sometimes you're not going to always want to go out Friday night. I generally don't. I generally practice on Friday nights. There is a balance in that, though. You still need to go out.
And occasionally you're playing out. Occasionally you're playing out. See how talented you are.
Yeah, but like I said, be comfortable in the practice. Make that fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nick was talking about doing a group interview at some point.
Yeah.
3 of us. That'd be fun.
I'd be down. I'd be honored to be being considered to be able to speak with him and talk shop with him at the same level. That'd be an honor for me.
And he's so humble about it.
He's so humble about it. Yeah. Nick is a good man.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Well, so if you do want to reach out to me, my email is christophergroppe@gmail.com. GROPPE is my last name. Facebook is Christopher Warren Groppe. I have an Instagram, which isn't very neat. So if that's the way, if you want to reach out to me, and I will let Nate know as soon as Cage Rank is up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And y'all will be the first to know about it. I'll be posting.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, guys, listeners. If you learned anything, awesome. If you didn't, that's also cool. Hope I didn't offend anybody. And it was cool doing this. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Peace and love, y'all.
See ya.
Hey, I'm still here. Thanks for listening. And if you love the show, please go onto iTunes and leave a review. It helps much more than just leaving a rating. It's a way that you can directly help the show, and that's going to help us keep getting good guests and putting out good content for all of y'all. So if you love us as much as we love you, please go ahead and just say one nice thing about us. It's an absolute pleasure for me to be able to sit down with these people and talk about excellence and pursuing excellence. And I love that I can provide it for anybody who's interested. So if you'd like to hear more, this is a very simple way that you can help support the show. Anyway, thanks again. Appreciate you. Take care of yourselves. Bye.